Kobbie Mainoo's solution for the Three Lions midfield. Kobbie Mainoo has been called up to the England team despite being only 18 years old. This is not a media trick, because this young player can really bring great value to coach Gareth Southgate and the England team. The biggest factor that cannot be ignored is the balance in the team's midfield, theoretical compatibility. But before talking about how Mainoo completes his team's midfield, first let's talk about the formation and how Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham operate in the Three Lions squad. First, with Declan Rice in England's 4-2-3-1 formation. Rice started as a holding midfielder. He mainly moved horizontally around the third midfield. When receiving the ball from under, Declan Rice would push the ball out to the sidelines or find a fellow midfielder in the middle of the field and gave him orders. Next up is Bellingham. With his attacking ability, the Real Madrid midfielder operates as a number 10, mainly on the edge of the box. When he has the ball, Bellingham will pass it up to share with the strikers or score himself. If necessary, he is ready to step back and receive the ball from the middle of the field and then pull the ball up high, with one person operating at the end of the field and another person in space. Is the width of the middle of the field. The midfielder paired with this duo needs to ensure the verticality of the field by moving up and down like a shuttle midfielder. That person needs to be ready to drop back to help as a receiving point with Declan Rice, while also supporting the attack by pushing forward with Bellingham in the middle. Mainoo, Declan Rice and Bellingham would in theory give England a very balanced midfield. Mainoo compensates for Declan Rice and Bellingham. England's midfield in any category has maximum parameters. But what is the reality? Currently, his team has only had 2 recent friendly matches against Belgium and Brazil. But that is enough to show how Mainoo is able to coordinate and complement his 2 teammates. We will go into more detail. Declan Rice is playing very well at Arsenal, but coach Mikel Arteta never uses him as the sole pillar. In fact, Declan Rice is tasked with pulling the ball from the defence to the midfield along with a midfielder. Another deep retreat in some cases. Declan Rice participates in deploying the ball sparingly to ensure Arsenal has enough anti-press elements in the opponent's half, and at the same time so that Declan Rice himself does not fall into a state of constant dispute. There are 2 reasons why Declan Rice is used like this. First, he will focus on exploiting the offensive front. Second, Declan Rice can escape pressure well, but is not completely safe even in this situation. Near or not, Declan Rice never turns his eyes to either side when standing in the opposite direction of his teammates' attack. He likes to receive the ball first and then look around later, but for a defensive midfielder, this is quite dangerous. As in the following example, in the England vs Belgium match, Declan Rice received the ball with his back to his teammates, but after holding the ball, he did not turn around and move into the space behind, but immediately returned the ball. He knows he doesn't have good turning ability, so he almost always chooses to pass backwards, which is true, but because it's the default. He always ignores looking around before receiving the ball. On the contrary, Kobbie Mainoo always rolls his eyes, and when he detects space, the midfielder will react immediately, like in the match against Belgium. This is how Mainoo received the ball and took the first shot with his left foot towards the goal. Midfielder Mainoo used his body to protect the ball while scanning to see where his opponents were and how far away they were, after spotting Bellingham's number 21 passing the ball with his dominant foot while still scanning the pulse around. When Bellingham received the ball, Mainoo ran. The above 2 examples do not mean that Declan Rice is worse than Mainoo, but in fact MU players have the ability to do well and help compensate for the number 42 shooter. To be more precise, England has been playing for a long time. No midfielder has the ability to sweep and turn comfortably when receiving the ball with his back turned. As for Declan Rice, he tends to hold the ball first and then pass, which is both good and bad for a ball-holding midfielder, a player who plays low in the middle of the field and is often frustrated when holding the ball. But if he is not agile enough to coordinate naturally when passing the ball at high speed, that is not wrong. However, such a player should be used up top rather than down, as Mainoo and Declan Rice can move wider in the spaces forward. So what about Mainoo and Bellingham in Southgate's 4-2-3-1 formation? The idea for Declan Rice not to play bot lane alone is to add Jordan Henderson to partner him. However, Henderson is old, and even at his peak, he was not good at escaping pressure, and in the middle third he was unlikely to make risky passes. With the above combination, Bellingham is often forced to drop deep to support the ball from below, but this has never been his strength, and Real Madrid's number 5 himself is not willing to do that. Instead of letting an unsuitable player drop and hold the ball, using Mainoo during the development phase would be a more suitable choice. It was easy to see that in the match against Belgium, with Mainoo supporting Declan Rice at the bottom, Bellingham was free to move forward and attack creatively, reducing the responsibility of compensating for a deeper position. About how Mainoo solves England's problems, now let's talk about how Mainoo can add to Gareth Southgate's squad at the moment. 1. Coordinate. The first problem for the England team is lack of coordination. If you look at the distance between the man on the ball and then look at the positioning of England's midfielders, you'll see a big problem for the Three Lions is their lack of willingness to attack. The ball moves continuously, lacking the necessary movement to create an easy passing point for the defender. Since there are very few short passing options, this forces the defender to wait patiently to make the safe, unlikely pass. Mainoo is a young 18-year-old player, very mobile and ready to participate in the development of the ball. 2. Deal the cards. This is the first addition, but let's move on to the issue of player quality. England lack a deep-lying playmaker. Good teams often have low-quality players playing from the back. Although Mainoo is young and is used more as a shuttle midfielder, he possesses the ability to regulate and control the pace of the match. MU and the entire England team thus have themselves a model home player, capable of sensing space, knowing how to deploy the ball and move accurately, even before Declan Rice played with Henderson or Calvin Phillips. All of whom are the best players. The names above are not the midfielders described. 3. Impact from other locations. Finally, we will talk about how Mainoo's midfield will affect other positions. With Mainoo, he is ready to step up to support if needed, and if so, England will not need to use Phil Foden or midfield at zone plays on the wing. If both Bellingham and Mainoo advance, the midfield will be too cramped. His team at that time had many players standing in front of the penalty area, but no one moved completely inside to finish. Foden can play on the wing, but he is more of a number 10, preferring to stay inside and let the fullbacks behind him move forward. He will step on Bellingham and Mainoo or Declan Rice. If so, Mainoo's appearance makes England need a left winger in the penalty area, supporting Soccer on the other wing and penetrating the opponent's defence. As for Soccer, having a defensive fullback drop back and not participate in the attack means he can be forced out by opponents due to a lack of necessary support. In short, just a few days ago people thought that the performance of the English midfield against Brazil was extremely lacklustre on a day when the whole system played poorly. Declan Rice, Gallagher and Bellingham all played below own strength. But when Mainoo entered the field, the Three Lions midfield was much stronger. That was the match against Brazil, and in the match against Belgium, Mainoo played so well that he received the Best Player of the Match award. Is that enough for this young midfielder to go with the team to Germany? Mainoo is now showing England what kind of player he is. Be willing to bravely take risks when you have the ball and act as a catalyst for your teammates' attacks. This is exactly what the Three Lions are missing. Finally, if you find the video interesting and useful, please click like and subscribe to support it. Your support will be a great source of motivation for us to produce and continue to develop in the future. And now hello and see you again in the next videos.